Today we're diving deep into the life of one of the most unsung heroes in hip-hop history, the one and only Warren G, also known as the Regulator, a name literally behind the success of hip-hop's favorite era, the 90s. I'll take you through his journey from getting rejected at Death Row Records, despite his crucial work on The Chronic and linking Snoop to his big brother Dr. Dre. I'll also break down his work and friendship with Tupac, revealing how he inspired him to write Definition of a Thug N***, explore his role as a peacemaker, trying to ease the tension between him and Biggie, and of course uncover how he ended up saving Def Jam from bankruptcy with his successful debut album. This episode picks up right where Snoop's story left off, deep in the early Death Row era. I already covered most of Warren G's childhood in Snoop's episode and earlier in the NWA docuseries. So to sum it up quickly, Warren grew up in Long Beach where he met his best friend Snoop in elementary school. He then moved in Compton with Dre in the early 80s after his father married Dre's mom. Dre became like a big brother to him, and he started teaching him how to mix while he was still in his early teens. Years later, at the end of high school, Snoop and Warren linked up with Nate Dogg and formed the group 213. For almost 2 years, Warren kept pushing Dre to listen to their demo tape. When Dre finally did, that tape is what led to Snoop getting signed to Death Row Records. By 1992, during the recording of The Chronic, Warren's role was mostly behind the scenes. He wasn't trying to be in the spotlight. He was the one digging through records, bringing samples to Dre, and helping shape the sound of the album. Dre had already taught him how to mix years earlier. Now he was teaching him how to sample on the MPC-60. Back then, there were no shortcuts. Warren was learning how to use the metronome, splice tape with alcohol, and manually cut samples. No presets, no plugins. A lot of young cats got it easy today. That's why Warren ended up behind so many records on The Chronic, secretly shaping songs like Let Me Ride, Lil Ghetto Boy, These Nuts, and Stranded on Death Row. Even though he wasn't officially credited. He was going to record stores all over Los Angeles, buying stacks of old vinyl, trying to find samples nobody had touched yet. Around that same time, as mentioned in Corrupt's episode, Warren also recorded his demo tape, which played a role in getting him signed to Death Row. He also taught Daz Dillinger how to produce. After The Chronic dropped, contracts started going out. A lot of people who worked on the album were getting signed. Warren didn't. As he later revealed in interviews, things started to shift when Warren told an artist to have a lawyer review their contract before signing. Word made its way back. One day, Warren was standing in the Death Row lobby when he saw Suge storming down the hallway looking for him. Warren rushed for the elevator, pressing the buttons trying to get out of there. But before the doors could close, Suge grabbed him, asking why he's telling his artists not to sign his contracts. Not long after, when it was time to go on tour for The Chronic, everyone on the label was supposed to go. At the airport, Suge started handing out tickets. Everybody got one, except Warren G. You've got to realize, at the time, it was the very beginning of the label, and nobody really had their own money yet. In Warren G's documentary, Snoop recalled how difficult it was to watch the disappointment on his best friend's face. When they came back from tour, Suge kept doing Warren dirty, and the atmosphere at Death Row started shifting. What began as a party vibe slowly turned into gangland. Seeing all this, Dre stepped in and told Warren it might be better for him to move on and build his career somewhere else. For Warren, that rejection cut deep, especially knowing that he was the one who introduced Snoop, his best friend, to Dre in the first place. But that moment would end up being the best thing that could have happened for his career. He just didn't know it yet. For him, this was a rough period. He had no deal, no money, and he'd just been pushed out of Death Row. But during that time, a few people still believed in him. MC Breed gave Warren the opportunity to produce Gotta Get Mine. That check gave him enough breathing room to start producing on his own. He began producing track for Mr. Grimm and the Twins, and that's how Indo Smoke came together. It was stamped as a Mr. Grimm song and featured Nate Dogg and Warren G. Despite everything that went down with Suge Knight, Warren stayed solid. He kept hanging around the Death Row studio, helping his best friend Snoop while he was recording his debut album in 1993. One day, while Snoop was working on a song for the Poetic Justice soundtrack, Warren ran into Paul Stewart, who was involved with John Singleton on the film. Warren asked him straight up if they still needed music for the soundtrack. Paul said yes. So they sat in Paul's car, and Warren played him his tapes. When Indo Smoke came on, Paul was blown away and immediately asked for Warren's number. 2 days later, Paul hit him back and said they wanted Indo Smoke to be a single for the soundtrack. Right around that same time, before anything was released, Warren got a phone call from Tupac, who had just heard the song. At first, Warren hung up, thinking someone was pranking him. Up to that point, he'd only worked with Breed on Gotta Get Mine and had never connected with Tupac. Pac called him directly and told him to pull up to Echo Sound. At the time, Warren didn't even have a place to stay. He was sleeping on his sister's floor, surrounded by his record crates and his drum machine. He grabbed everything he had and drove up to the studio. Warren told Pac everything he was dealing with, getting rejected by Death Row, the tension in the streets, the pressure building around him. Pac really listened. Right there on the spot, Pac wrote his now classic song, Definition of a Thug Nigga, and laid it over one of Warren's beats. Just minutes after finishing the record, Pac's homies walked in the studio with bad news. Their friend Kato had just been killed. Pac turned to Warren saying he wanted to make a song in his tribute and asked if he had another beat. Warren pulled one up. Pac laid his verse, and Warren told him he could call Nate Dogg for the hook. Nate pulled up. That's how Long Will They Mourn Me was created. And on a lighter note, that was also the moment Pac introduced them to blunts. The same way he did with Snoop during the Poetic Justice rap party, as mentioned in Laylaw's episode. Technically, it's safe to say that MC Breed and Tupac were the first ones to really give him his shot, and it's important to remember this all happened about 2 years before Pac ever joined Death Row. After the Poetic Justice soundtrack dropped, labels started calling. Def Jam reached out. At the time, Def Jam wasn't what it used to be. Their late 80s dominance had faded with the rise of West Coast gangsta rap, but Def Jam was historic. It represented the foundation of hip-hop itself and was the label Warren grew up listening to, and for him, that made the choice easy. When it was time to head to New York, Warren admits he was a little nervous about going by himself, so he bought plane tickets for the twins and brought them along. But as soon as they landed, LL Cool J called him and came to pick them up personally. LL took Warren back to his house, where his grandmother lived. It was the first time Warren had ever seen that many clothes in one place. LL showed him around, took him to the mall, and introduced him to East Coast culture. He was starstruck. Warren later described that period as one of the best times of his life. Being accepted on the East Coast meant everything to him. During his time there, Warren also built relationships with Biggie and Lil Cease. They became tight. Later on, Biggie would even make the trip to Long Beach to see him. When tensions between Biggie and Tupac started rising, Warren tried to step in. Being cool with both sides, he wanted to be the peacemaker. He went out to Bed-Stuy hoping to ease things, but unfortunately, as we know, it didn't work out. After signing his deal with Def Jam, he returned to Long Beach to record his debut album. Warren had just brought home a crate of vinyl. As he started digging through the records, one song jumped out immediately. I Keep Forgetting by Michael McDonald, a record his dad used to listen to. He sampled it. Once the beat was ready, he called Nate and pitched him the idea. As Warren recalls, Nate had a rare gift. He could turn anything into a song. Inspired by G-Thang, he wanted a record where they'd go back and forth like Dre and Snoop did. They recorded it at Warren's apartment. He had a small home setup with the vocal booth literally in the bathroom closet, and that was it. They never re-recorded the vocals in a professional studio. What you hear on the record, and almost the entire album, came straight from that apartment. That song became Warren's biggest hit. And here's the irony. Regulate first appeared on the Above the Rim soundtrack, and guess who produced it? None other than Death Row Records. When Jimmy Iovine heard the record, he immediately requested it as the lead single for Above the Rim. Now there was another problem. Nate Dogg was signed to Death Row. Warren G was signed to Def Jam Recordings. That label conflict is why the single ended up being released on both labels. First through Death Row, then months later on Def Jam on Warren's debut album. And surprisingly, it didn't hurt the reach at all. Warren later said the record sold around 4 million copies on each side. Behind the scenes, Suge Knight also had ongoing issues with Def Jam executives Russell Simmons and Leor Cohen. Let's say it, he couldn't stand them. That tension made it difficult for Warren to work openly with his Death Row friends like Snoop, Nate, and Corrupt. On some records, he even pitched their voices so Death Row wouldn't recognize them. Snoop Dogg and Corrupt also ghost wrote tracks like Do You See and This DJ, staying involved behind the scenes. As Warren's success grew, Suge started feeling it. He had the opportunity to sign Warren and chose not to, so when Warren blew up on Def Jam, it stung, especially after people had just seen him hanging around Death Row. So in 1994, Suge even tried to block Nate Dogg from performing Regulate with Warren at the Billboard Awards. Nate took the risk and showed up anyway, just like Dre, who continued to show support through cameos in his music videos. Warren's name started buzzing overseas. Snoop remembers bringing him on tour in Europe and being shocked by how much motion Warren had. The crowds were massive. When Def Jam signed Warren G, the label was close to bankruptcy, but his debut album exploded. It sold over 3 million copies in the United States alone. That success put Def Jam back on its feet and opened the door for the next generation. Artists like DMX, Jay-Z, and the duo Method Man and Redman followed soon after. Warren later shared that he had plans to bail Tupac out of jail and talked about it with Richie Rich. That could have changed history. But as you already know, Suge got there first. To this day, Warren G has stayed the same. Calm, solid, always trying to put people on. You have to realize without Warren G, Snoop doesn't get to death row, and without Snoop, the entire DPGC doesn't follow. Ironically, getting pushed out of death row ended up being the best move of his life because that rejection led him to Def Jam. And in the end, Warren G played a role in building the most famous label in the world while helping save the most historic one in hip-hop. Alright fam, that wraps up today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell as a brand new episode comes out every Friday. In case you're just tuning in, I'm specialized in animated documentaries, digging up rare insights and untold backstories about your favorite old school rappers. And if you're a fan of NWA, make sure to check out my docuseries exploring the origins of the world's most dangerous group, including the stories of Crazy D, the forgotten Mexican member, and of Laylaw, their secret affiliate. For short animated stories and the latest old school hip-hop news, make sure to follow us on Instagram, just like your favorite rappers already did. If you don't know, we're pretty active on here and are publishing short animated interview clips in collaboration with major hip-hop outlets in the game. For those who want to show a little support, as these documentaries take a ton of time, research, and effort to put together, YouTube thanks and memberships are now available. Big love to everyone who stuck around till now. Peace out and see you next Friday.